Welcome to MICE, the Massachusetts Independent Comics Expo. I'm your host, Zach Clemente, and welcome to Making a Career in Comics. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsor for this program, the Graphic Artists Guild. The Guild helps its members build successful careers by equipping them with the skills and support needed to compete more effectively in an ever-changing field. Guild members are creative professionals and those studying to become creative professionals, such as graphic and interactive designers, illustrators, animators, web programmers, and developers. During this session, we will be giving away 2 free copies of the Graphic Artists Guild Handbook Pricing and Ethical Guidelines 14th edition. If you want a chance to win, all you have to do is type your name into the chat and stick around. And thank you to our arts advocates. These are major contributors who sustain MICE and allow our show to grow year after year. MICE is produced by the Boston Comics Arts Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit charitable organization that funds comic art festivals, individual artists, and educational programs for the greater Boston community. If you like what we're doing here, please consider supporting us using the donate button in this session. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see a button labeled Ask a Question. Please use that button to ask or vote up any questions you may have throughout the session. Also, feel free to use the chat feature to say hello. Finally, we will be streaming this panel to our Facebook page, facebook.com/MICEEXPO, for audience members who would like to use the automated closed captioning function that Facebook Live offers. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator, Jazzlyn Stone. She has built her own career as a freelance comics marketer, part-time lanyard designer, occasional writer, and co-captain of Very Very Shopping Network. Thank you, Jazzlyn. Please take it away.
That was such a lovely introduction. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. I'm Jazzlyn Stone, a freelance comics marketer, and I am so excited to be here. This is going to be an incredible panel. I brought my notebook. I hope you did too. I have a feeling that we're all going to be taking a lot of notes because there's a wealth of information within this panel today. So making a career in comics. With me, I have 3 incredible cartoonists / publishers / people who've made a career in comics, are comics professionals. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves. But real quick, we got Gale Galligan, Spike Trotman, and Taneka Stotts. So if you all wouldn't mind introducing yourselves in that order, please.
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Gale Galligan. I am a cartoonist. I recently finished my 4th contribution to the Babysitters Club graphic novel series, Logan Likes Marianne, which just came out in September. I am now pivoting to my own original graphic novels, but that is my area of expertise, working in comics, specifically in the kids book publishing side, and I'm super excited to talk about that. Nice to meet you.
Okay, hi, I'm Spike Trotman, just Spike is fine. I'm a cartoonist, I'm a writer, and I am the founder, owner, and editor for life of Iron Circus Comics, Chicago's largest comics publisher. We're about 12 or 13 years old, I don't know, and we're not technically a comics publisher anymore. We recently pivoted into being a multimedia company because we have financed our first animated project on Kickstarter. We were Kickstarter early adopters, launching our first project the year Kickstarter was founded in 2009. And we have since launched and successfully funded 27 projects to the tune of nearly $2 million, in the process pioneering and creating the model for comics anthologies that is still used to this day, and creating award-winning, critically acclaimed work. On the screen right now is Yes, Roya, which is a book of erotica that I wrote and Emily Denich illustrated, and it is fantastic and I love it.
Hello, everybody. I'm Taneka Stotts. I'm a Emmy-nominated story editor who has come from the world of comics. I am a Ignatz and Eisner winner for Elements Fire, a comic anthology by creators of color. We recently released Elements Earth, a comic anthology by creators of color, and I'm looking forward to continue in comics, some way, shape, or form.
Ooh, that was a little tantalizing. Welcome. Thank you so much for all being here. This is going to be really fun. So my first question is, at what point in your career did you realize that you were like a comics professional? When did that really hit home for all of you?
I know that everyone's going to say, oh, well, when you start making a living from comics, that's when you can actually, start calling yourself, when you start paying the bills. But for me, that moment came and went, and I still didn't feel like authentic. I didn't feel real. I don't think that was because I had internalized this idea that you were only, and keep in mind, I'm old, I'm like ancient. You have to picture like the Skeksis emperor, like just sort of like wilting away to dust and nothingness. That's me, that's my current age. And back then, the only people who were taken, air quotes, seriously came in two varieties. They were the people who had a comics in the newspaper that, like their grandpa started and they inherited, and they hire people to write and draw, put their name on it, call it a day, and go golfing. Or people who were part of the Marvel or DC machine, who got a paycheck handed to them via page rates and for doing work for hire. And those were like the real comics professionals. And I was with the webcomic scene, and we were like pretenders. And my favorite was, what were we? We were like envious failures who were angry that, we weren't drawing High and Lois, because clearly that's what all cartoonists secretly aspire to. So we put our comics on the internet for free for the express purpose of destroying the newspaper comic. Like, this was real. It sounds absurd now, but this was real. So even when I was doing like 15, 16, 17 cons a year, and I was coming home with money and putting it in a bank account, or rather, I was putting it in a plastic bag in my living room. I don't do that. That's not smart. I was making, all the profits were going in a big Ziploc bag in my living room, and I'd be on streams drawing, and people who knew about my problem were like, "Do you still have that Ziploc bag?" And I'd go and get it, and I'd be like, "Here's my Ziploc bag with $12,000 in it. Aren't I smart to have this in my apartment?"
Wait. And I'm sorry. How big of a Ziploc bag do you need?
It was a freezer bag. It was like that. And, but yeah, even when that was happening, even when I was making what I called secretary money, I didn't feel I was a comics professional, because there was so much pushback against what I was doing. I didn't actually start feeling that way, honestly, until like 3 or 4 years into running Iron Circus, where it was eating up all of my time. And I was overwhelmed with wholesale orders from comic shops, because I was doing my own personal distro at that point. And when I began to feel like I was drowning, then it was sort of like I was inarguably a comics professional then. When I had no free time to myself and I was working 7 days a week, I guess this is it. I have made it. Hooray.
Wow.
Yeah. Not productive, not intelligent. That's just how I did it.
No, the suffering is key.
Yes. Suffering. That's how you know. There's your answer. Suffering.
Right?
Are you in agony? Congratulations.
You're a comics professional. Yeah. What about you, Taneka? When did you like realize that you were a comics professional?
I think it was probably when I held my first book. There's no other greater gratifying feeling than seeing something that you've put so much hard work into being held in your hands physically, regardless that you're going to be selling it or, posting it online. It's still something really wonderful to see. And that's not to take away from online comics either, because I've published plenty of those, but it was definitely holding my first book that really gave me that sensation.
I feel that. Yeah. I feel like for me personally, it was just kind of like not necessarily one big moment, but a series of shifts, because I always tried to treat myself as a comics professional. I guess if I had to pick a moment, this is silly, but it'd probably be when I was like at SPX and an editor bought me coffee. It was just like, I did it. Nice. Okay. Thank you for this gift that I didn't have to do anything for. That was a moment when I felt like, oh, I have made it somehow. This is great.
Was it like
Buy
a
me
meeting?
coffee is what I'm saying.
Were they schmoozing you, or were they just like, "Hey, I like your work. Here's a cup of coffee"?
Yeah, it was like, "Hey, do you have a spare minute? Like, let's talk about comics. Here's a coffee." So it was very much like, "Oh, good. I feel just number one, high caffeine, and number two, like very, very excellent." Yeah.
Yeah, like you're professional enough that somebody wants to give you a treat so that they can learn from you. Like you're like, "Oh, I'm kind of a big deal."
I accept. Yeah, what I'm saying is bribe me. Hello.
All right, I'm making a note of that. For Gale. Okay, so let's kind of jump in. I assume that people in chat are here because they want to learn how to like break into comics. One thing that I'm hoping that we get to really like shine through is that if you haven't picked up on that already from all these incredible stories, is that there's no like breaking into comics, there's no one moment where you're like, I'm here, right? It is like a series of shifts. It's a series of like, maybe you can no longer say that you are not in comics because you were like spending all your time doing it. So what are some like basic requirements that you suggest to somebody who's new to comics? Is this like a CV, a website, a portfolio? I don't know. What are some like basics that you want everybody to start with?
Have comics that people can look at online. Like if you're applying for stuff, if you want people to know you make comics, you have to have comics somewhere that people can look at. I think that is the very most basic thing on my part.
Nice.
I think also having social media presence is really nice. As a comic creator, a publisher, a writer, an editor, it's really great to be able to network and facilitate yourself with the rest of the comics making world. And most of that's moved online. So it's a really great place to facilitate that kind of relationship.
My thing would be make sure you have a really clear idea of what you want to do in comics, because when someone starts out with like, oh man, I want to make comics, that's a really broad category. Like when you say I want to make comics, you need to zero in on what do you want. Like, do you want to draw Babysitters Club? Or do you want to have a $4,000 a month Patreon doing whatever the fuck you feel like doing? Or do you want to found a publisher and start publishing the work of other creators along with your own work? Or do you want to be part of the Marvel DC machine and you don't want to necessarily be, I don't want to make comics. You want to be a pencilist for Spider-Man, because all of those careers require very different paths. Let me know if I get louder. Crap. I don't know what's wrong with this thing. Apologies.
No, it's okay.
Oh, so you only see half my face. Let me know if the audio gets louder. And it's up to you to research what you want, the same way I would tell an illustrator, if you want to be a professional illustrator and you want to illustrate children's books about woodland creatures having tea parties, don't fill your portfolio with exploded views of V8 engines, because the only people who will want to hire you are the people who need someone to draw exploded views of V8 engines. You have to be really specific about what you want starting out, and then you have to do your research about how to get there. You need to not really, like, I wouldn't say flood the inbox of working cartoonists, because quite frankly, they're busy. They have a lot going on, and they might not be able to answer you in a timely fashion. But you can learn a lot just by being a voyeur. Like, just sort of looking at what a person you aspire to be is up to, where they go, what they do, who's publishing them, how they manage to get there, and that's really helpful. Sorry if I'm quiet.
It's okay. Yeah, it's still a little bit quiet, but I don't know if your mic has changed. I think
that's the thing. I totally just checked and it hasn't.
Weird.
I'm gonna futz with it a little bit and see what happens.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Because yeah, that was really good, and I like want everyone to be able to hear it or read it if it's picking up. Yeah, that's all really, really good advice. Is there something, I don't know, do you have any like tips for like, do not do this? This is something I did at the beginning and I regret it. Or like, I don't know, like one thing I see online, right, is that professors will be like, go talk to a comics artist and ask them a series of questions and they need to answer everyone. And I see the other side where the artists are like, please stop asking. Like, I can't do an essay with you. I can't do like a one-on-one interview with you. So I don't know, is there something that you recommend people not do or kind of try to avoid at the beginning?
Yeah. Am I still quiet real quick?
Yes.
God damn. I don't know what's going on. This is the first time this has happened. I'll try and speak up. Like I said, it's fuck this thing. Anyway, hassling working artists is probably not a great idea. Like I said, there are occasionally artists who are like super into being helpful that way, but voyeurism is honestly the most helpful way. And then there's always learning by doing. And if you are absolutely dedicated to this idea of asking someone who is in a position you aspire to be in questions, and they are con attendees, you need to exercise some strict discipline. If you go to Big Bad Con and the creator is there, maybe 2 or 3 questions. Don't lurk at the table. Don't, take up all their time, because chances are they're there to put in an appearance or they're there to make money. That's why they're there. They're not necessarily there to have long chats with aspirants.
Yeah, I feel like when I was starting out, I had this very anxious feeling like every interaction I had could be make or break. And one thing that really helped me, like, as I continued to grow, was realizing everybody's people. We're all just normal human people, and if you talk to us like people, it's gonna be fine. Like, don't stress out that you said something wrong. Don't stress out that you have to get everything right. There will always be another chance. If you have to go and sleep when a convention's over, do it. You're not gonna miss out. Just take your time. It's gonna be okay.
That's actually an amazingly good point, because I remember early on in my career, I'd be on the con floor. I'd be selling for 7 hours, 8 hours, and it'd be over. And I usually, more often than not, skipped lunch, because that means I would be away from the table, and it's super unprofessional to be eating at the table. I listened to that bullshit. And so I'd be hungry. And then after the show was over, everyone's like, "Oh, you going to BarCon?" And I did not want to go to BarCon. I'm just not, I don't want to go to a big noisy room and yell at some editors. I don't want to do that. But I had this intense feeling that, but what if this is the BarCon when ... What if you are chilling at the bar and the editor for Big Bad Publisher is chilling there and goes, "Oh, hey, for some reason I'm super bored and no one's talking to me. Tell me all about yourself and your dreams for the future." And like, that's not going to happen. One Miss BarCon is not going to be like that ship you could have gotten on and then you wake up tomorrow and it's sailing, it's disappearing over the horizon. That's not how your career is going to work. You're not Lana Turner at the soda fountain waiting for some guy to come and go, "Hey, you should be in pictures," and suddenly you're a movie star. That's not how comics works. This is something you need to be in for the long haul.
Yeah, it's a marathon for sure.
Yeah. They also apply a lot of that terminology to sending cold emails. Emails are great. They're wonderful ways of reaching out to people that you might not have the opportunities to meet at a convention space. However, make sure that when you're applying anything to your email, such as, "Hey, this is the project, this is the scope of the project, this is how much I'll pay for the project," are included as little bullet points in your email.
That's awesome. And that kind of brings me to rate negotiations, which I think everyone was kind of excited to talk about. And this is something that, there's just so much to discuss, and I want to get everyone's opinions. So let's talk about rates, right? Like, it's hard in comics. There's no universal standard. Everyone has a different page rate. So is there, so to start, like, have you ever taken on a low rate and later regretted it?
Yes, absolutely. I don't do much work for hire for, time reasons and desire reasons. But not super long ago, I did a cover for an Adventure Time comic. And not only did they misspell my name, and it's misspelled in every occurrence of this work I did for the cover, I got paid $200 for a cover for an Adventure Time comic. And I've seen it reprinted like 3 or 5 times. And it makes me reminisce of, I had a friend back when I was like, a shivering fawn in the forest of comics, he was very kind, and he had long talks with me. Mentor is strong, but really good buddy is a great way to put it. And whenever we were in a comic shop together, he'd be like, "Hold on, I need to see a Star Wars book. I see a Star Wars book. I need to go over there." And he would go over to the Star Wars book and he'd flip through it and he'd be like, "There it is. I drew this 14 years ago and it's been reprinted more times than I can guess. And, they paid me once for it. And now every time an Art of Star Wars comes out, it's in there." And I remember thinking, "Oh, huh." And I have let the exact same fucking thing happen to me. So I learned nothing. So yeah, value yourself and your time, everyone.
Truly.
What about you, Gale?
Yeah. When I was pretty early on, I took on a low rate on the more like freelance illustration side. It didn't seem low at the time, but I quickly realized that the scope of the project was way further than they had actually let on. which was very stressful. I was a tiny baby. I ended up number one negotiating like a slightly higher rate, and number two backing out when it went like 6 months over what I was expecting. So yeah, it definitely happens, and it's a, how do I put this? It is a huge bummer, but it's not your fault, and you can always communicate about what you need to keep going or leave.
Yeah, stuff like that is negotiable, and I think it's kind of important to acknowledge there are, I mean, I can't think of a better word, predatory companies out there who will trade on the popularity of the property they're currently, making work about. So they will go to, they will know that something is super popular just in the general sphere of small press indie comics, and they will show up and be like, hey, we've seen your work online, especially if like you do fan art or something. Like, we see that you've done some amazing fan art for Hamsters in Space, and we're making a comic. Would you like to do a cover for Hamsters in Space? Wouldn't that be amazing? This cartoon you love so much, and then you could have an official piece of Hamsters in Space art in your professional portfolio forever. Will you do it for $200? And if you're, I remember being 22. I remember being desperate to be spit on. I remember that phase. And I absolutely understand why people say yes.
Yeah, like it feels like a big break. It feels very exciting.
You're in. This is the beginning. It's going to happen now. Yeah.
Well, while I didn't say yes, I did actually get contacted by a predatory company, and that predatory company offered us $6,000 for a 3-book deal. That 6,000 is the full advance, for 150 pages per book at 3-month delivery time between each. And that was from a larger comics company that is now in animation. It's moved over, but it still has comic ties, but anyway, they did definitely try to set that up for their children's imprint, and that's exactly what they were doing. And they were going off based off the fact that it was already a webcomic that was out, so they felt that it had less value declared by them, and therefore their accountants had already gone over it, and they felt that that was the fair deal to offer said book.
Whoa. Okay, so how did you say no? Like, how do you build up the courage to be like, I'm actually worth more than this, and I'm like, thank you but no, or just like, screw you but no? Like, how do you say no to a bad deal?
I say no. I know that's hard for a lot of people to understand the power and the value of the word no. I thankfully also have an agent who definitely reps for me and also said heck no when they received this offer. But it's something that you have to work on to understand that these deals are not the end all be alls of your career, or they will not make or break you as a person. Therefore, moving on with the rest of your life is much more pertinent for you and will last longer as far as you are considered in any industry that you work in. Anybody who's going to offer you pennies on the dollar for thinking of your time is not worth your time.
Absolutely not. Like, if they're approaching you, it's because you could make them money, and you can't ever forget that. It's okay to say no.
Everyone write that down.
Yeah.
That's really good. Okay, well, speaking of advances, how do you budget those? When you get an advance, like, so obviously, like, we all reacted when you said 3 months in between the books, 6,000 up front. And for people who don't know, like, why is that a low number, and how do you budget your advances when you're working on a book?
This is interesting for me as a publisher, because Iron Circus is what is referred to as small mid, in that we put out like 12 to 15, aiming for 20 books a year. And quite frankly, since we are small mid, meaning we are not HarperCollins, we are not Random House, we are not Abrams, we are not these centuries old companies that can pony up six-figure advances. We just can't do that. And we are aware of that, and the people we work with are aware of that, and we make up for that on the back end, which is literally, we offer percentage deals that make people who go with Random House go, oh. And there is occasionally stuff going on Twitter where, again, this is me trying to be super diplomatic and coming at it from a publisher point of view. I see occasional hashtags, things like comics paid me, etc. And I will see someone talk about a really fantastic deal they got. And the thread will be full of 18-year-olds going, ew! And it's like, no, that's actually a fantastic person has got. Like, every publisher you're going to come across is going to have a different model depending on their size, their reach, their budget, etc. And that is just a fact of life. The thing I always bring up is Stephen King, 4 books into his career, four books into his career, was still a college English teacher. Okay. So chances are super good you're not going to put out your first graphic novel and then that's going to pay your way for the rest of your life, especially considering the graphic novel market is 1/10 the size of the prose market. We're growing enormously. We are doubling size every 5 to 6 years, but we are 1/10 of the size of the prose publishing market. And those are just kind of like the realities of comics. And it's rough out here. I will be the first to tell you it's rough out here. And if you do not feel comfortable knowing what's a good deal and what's a bad deal, what you should go with, what is like the high risk deal, high reward deal, what's the safe deal, I strongly recommend getting an agent, because chances are good the agent, well, a good agent, let me correct myself, a good agent will know the difference between this isn't a great deal over here, but these are the reasons why it's being offered, and just grab anything or hold out for a Random House deal that maybe 3 people a year get. And that, like, that's kind of where I'm coming from. If you don't feel comfortable negotiating, get a good agent, an agent with a track record of getting deals, because it's the simplest thing in the world to set yourself up as, I'm an agent. And if someone is soliciting you for representation, it's worth asking who they represent and what deals they've gotten those people.
Yeah. As like, there are definitely, like you said, a whole bunch of different factors. But once you have the advance and are trying to budget it out, I think it really does depend on the amount and the time you have. Like, a $6,000 advance is kind of like, over 3 months, but screaming.
Full color, fully lettered by you.
just deeply like, oh, this hurts my entire heart. I would actually, physically perish. But if that $6,000 is like, hey, do this graphic novel on the side for a few years, and you're okay with that, awesome. That does mean that you need to budget out like a lot of your time. Like, what else can I be doing while I'm working on this? Maybe you have another job, maybe you have other graphic novels or smaller comics project going. But for me personally, I have a separate, business banking account and personal banking account that I pay myself from once a month. So I'm not looking at like an advance number in the bank, like, this will sustain me for the next year. What is, like, no, I'm just like existing month to month and taking a lot of notes. That's just how my brain works.
That's really smart.
Yeah,
that's financially sensible.
Remembering that a lot of that is going to taxes too.
Yeah.
And I that's actually a point that you brought up. Like, a lot of Iron Circus books, there's books that have been in production for 2 years and they won't be ready for until 2023. And that is because, chances are that a lot of the larger publishers, it's important to note that advance is, here is money to live on while you finish the book in accordance with this schedule here. And that schedule is going to take into account, we have given you enough to live on for a year so that you're not focusing on anything else. You're not taking any freelance. You don't have a day job. You can quit Starbucks and you can do this book. And smaller publishers, frankly, I go into it saying, how long will this take you to finish? And they're like, 2 or 3 years. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine. It's like, I already have 2023 planned. And that's just, again, that's just the nature of publishing. So.
Taneka, how about you? How do you, because you're working in animation and comics, so how do you balance the two, and how do you schedule out your comics?
Pretty much right now, it's just based upon what I'm paying other people. I'm no longer being paid by other corporations, mostly because I realized that them facilitating out buying my storylines for them means that they can move it into TV or movies with their $65 page rate that they would offer me, which makes them way more once they facilitate it further into media. So I say no to a lot of those comic book deals, and I actually embrace more of the indie side and just web comics as of late. Instead, just paying the artists that I work with, or the colorists that I work with, or the letterers that I work with, and instead just facilitating that and keeping their knowledge high as far as what the power of what they should be asking for if they are approached, and also having conversations right now with the guild. The animation guild is now looking to possibly form a bigger hand out towards comics writers and comics graphic illustrators. So seeing that kind of manifest and hopefully blossom into something bigger is actually how I manage my time lately. It's not really directly being focused on, I want to be published by a publisher. I've already been published by a publisher. I'm technically already been a publisher. So I've kind of made all of those goals come true. So now it's more just elevating the conversation into what could be a new potential future, and hopefully something that pays a lot more, because now that these bigger industries are seeing the power of the book industry and how it is shooting up, and how much percentage it has shot up over the last 5.5 years. Those are the bigger conversations that are now being held, and I'm just happy to be able to add a voice and hopefully see them continue to move in a very positive progression.
That's awesome. Thank you for doing that. Also, putting work towards that. Okay, so Gale, you mentioned this a little bit, but can we just talk real quick about taxes? They're terrifying. Why do we pay them? How do we pay them? How do we figure them out? Taxes, what, why, when?
Save $700,000 on our hair a year.
Taxes, they hurt.
Yeah. Who wants to start? Taxes, why?
I have an accountant expressly because I don't want to deal with them. Iron Circus is like a lot of publishers its size. It is a single person LLC, and all its labor is currently contract labor, which means everyone who works for Iron Circus, and we have like, I don't even know, like 7 people who are kind of dedicated to getting the books out on time right now. They are under contract, which means I am not responsible for things like healthcare or pension stuff or sick leave or things like that. And I see that in the future, and I'm not a fan because it's kind of terrifying. Like, contract is so much easier. Everyone just gets their 1044 and we're done. But yeah, the taxes get more complicated when you are sort of an established known business entity and you have to provide people certain forms and you have to collect certain forms from them, W-9s and W-8s, depending on where they live. And you have to make sure every year they're all up to date and everybody gets the forms they need to fill out their taxes. And again, I have a guy for that. And I got a guy for that because a few years ago, it was getting to the point where we were spending a week trying to get all the information together at any one time. And we were being really inefficient, and we were just sort of entering this nightmare zone for, the beginning of April. And eventually we just got an accountant, and now I send him a list of numbers. 2 days later, I get, this is what you owe the state. This is what you owe the federal government. Here are the taxes I made for you. Approve it or don't approve it. And he especially helps with write-offs a lot. Like, for example, I have a home office, and he interviewed me when I first hired him. I have a home office, and he's like, okay, so what's the square footage of your place? And what's the square footage of the office? Okay, great. Your home office makes up, let's say, 25% of your house. That means that 25% of your electricity, 25% of your internet bill, 25% of your, everything else. And your phone, like, you square on that. Okay, great. We're writing off your phone. Your phone is now business. Also, since you're a publisher, literally every book you purchase, including your Audible account, that is research. So all of that you can write off. Oh, also this you can write off, that you can write off. Any art purchase you make, if it goes in your office, you can write it off. Like, things like that. And that is very helpful. It's extremely helpful. But I haven't done like personal taxes in a long time. And there is an express reason for that. Once you reach a certain volume, you just enter hell world. And I waited too long to get my accountant. So.
Oh, that's good advice. So get an accountant ASAP.
Yeah.
As soon as you can afford one.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you are bad with numbers, bad with receipts. If you have, God, what is that piece of crap I have? I have this thing that I have recently signed up for. Excuse me, I'm Googling it to make sure.
Oh, is it like Receiptify or something?
It's QuickBooks.
Gotcha.
Yeah, QuickBooks is kind of bullshit on a level that is only applicable to like me, but for like general purpose stuff, for sole proprietor stuff, it's pretty useful because it categorizes things for you, and at the end of the year it spits stuff out, and that helps you do your taxes, and it's tied into a tax, like an actual thing that'll do your taxes for you, so it can be low hassle. So I hate QuickBooks, but I also recommend it.
All right, a lukewarm recommendation. QuickBooks.
I hate it.
But also they're sponsoring, so no. QuickBooks is not sponsoring.
And if you don't like QuickBooks, always check out Excel spreadsheets or even Google spreadsheets. You can make them on your own and just some value them.
Do you use Google Sheets for your finances?
Yes, I do.
You are so brave. Or so much smarter than me. I mean, obviously both, but dang.
It's just a quick way around it. But also, just to go back briefly to contracts and also to kind of segue into tax at the same time, please check out Katie Lane's classes for workmadeforhire.net. Katie Lane has put together like really comprehensive seminars and coursework into understanding you as a creator and what your rights are when contract negotiations are at hand. But not only that, but a few times I've been to their panels and workshops. Taxes are talked about in a roundabout way. So I also have an accountant, so I don't have a lot to say, but I always tell people who are venturing into this world and trying it for the first time, please ask questions. Know that for international folks, you still need to get a W-8 bin form from them if you're paying them over $600. And just in general, try to catch yourself before taxes come to you. Know that you have that whole year to spend or make money, and that at the end of that year, you need to actually account for what you have made. It's really simple and easy. You don't have to pay a ton of money for a tax accountant. There are a lot of free services online that you can read, even places now that are like 1099s online where it'll do everything for you. But it's really important to kind of learn these things before just jumping into them head first.
Yeah. Like as the self-employed person who, like, you know, could hypothetically be working with Iron Spike Comics, like my experience has basically been oh no, taxes, they are something I am solely responsible for, and that's horrible and terrifying. What I found out going in was basically if you in the States make over, I think it's like $1,000 a year freelancing, you're gonna want to start paying quarterly estimated taxes. And that basically just means that 4 times a year, you are saying to the government, hey, I think I'm going to make like this amount this year, here's a quarter of it. So you're just like throwing money at them because your employer is you. So you're not setting aside that money to pay the government. You're not setting aside that money also for things like Social Security or Medicare, which means that you're paying a self-employment tax as well as those other taxes. It ends up adding up to something like 30%. So every paycheck you get, every comic check you get, if you can set aside that amount, please do it. Don't wait until the very last minute. Take notes in a spreadsheet or in QuickBooks of how much you're earning, just like maybe every few months, keep track of your receipts and just organize them. It'll make things a lot easier in the long run. Taking a lot of notes, saying here's how much I made, here's how much I spent, putting your receipts in one place. Those are all very helpful things that I didn't do at first and now know better. I do have a CPA now, and like the others here, can recommend it. But that's kind of the long and short of it. You're just making your own money, yeah.
Will you explain what a CPA is? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. A certified public accountant, I believe. Just a person who help you with taxes.
Yeah. Oh no, Gale, we can't. I'm sorry, not Gale.
Your audio's out.
Your audio's out. Oh no, now it's good.
Back.
Okay, I just want to mention here, I'm an extremely sloppy bitch and always have been. So
it went really low again, Spike. Come in.
Okay, hold on. Everybody just come on, you fucker.
Yeah.
Come on.
We're back.
Just neg it, yeah.
I'm an extremely sloppy bitch, always have been. Oh my god.
Say it one more time.
Hello. Okay. I do not pay quarterly taxes because I'm bad at life. I had this discussion with my accountant. I had this discussion with my accountant when I first hired him, because I hired him through another cartoonist, and he just kind of did this long sigh, and he was all like, I'm assuming I will not be able to convince you to pay quarterly taxes like my other client. And I was like, no, you will not. And he's like, you will be fined at the end of the year. And I'm like, I don't care. What we have talked about what that fine will probably be. I will consider that, money well paid to not spend 4 times a year doing this. And he's like, okay, I cannot actually recommend this course of action because you will literally be fined. But if this is what you want to do and you're happy to eat that fine, go for it. And I'm all like, yes, I will do that. But you shouldn't be like me. You should pay your quarterly taxes. You should be an adult. We're trying to have a society here. Be responsible. I'm not a good person.
Still not an adult. Still don't pay quarterly taxes. They're garbage.
Yeah. Dun, da, da. Yeah. And the fine, honestly, the fine is nothing. The fine is nothing.
Good to know.
It's really small, and you can get around it too if your accountant's really good.
Oh man, I feel like we have like a tug of war going on. Gail's like, pay your quarterly taxes, and Taneka and Spike are like, or don't. It's fine.
Good, chaotic evil.
Who's gonna come after you? The government? It's still figuring itself out right now.
My official tax advice is fuck them kids. That's my official tax advice. No, pay it. You definitely want to pay
your taxes. You definitely want to pay the taxes.
But quarterly taxes, exactly. Quarterly taxes. I could not be fucked. I'm sorry. There are probably children in here. I'm sorry. I can't be fucked. I can't. I have a million things.
Mice is like, we do not support this. We support people paying their taxes.
We do not condone. Some of the panel just shuts down.
Exactly.
It's like, we are a C503 Foundation, please pay your taxes.
Yeah, like the skylights bust in and dudes in like tactical armor come down. It's like, pay the $45. I'm like, okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
TLDR, don't pay your quarterly taxes.
Yeah, don't.
Put it on an enamel pin.
or also maybe do. I don't know where we landed with that, but we're going to move on.
The worst question.
We do
choose your own adventure.
Exactly.
Do you want to be taken down by the tax man, or do you want to pay your quarterly taxes?
And the tax man, for the record, is like that one WWF wrestler who was like, what's it, IRS? God, I'm dated. I'm so dated. Now he come on, you remember him? He was like a wrestler.
He had a slender man. He just wants to give you a hug. Just let
Erwin. Oh God,
I've seen this rom-com.
Oh, that's right. He's the one whose last name was a slur.
We're running a little low on time, and I really wanted to ask a question about project management before we get into Q&As. But after this, we're all gonna discuss this tax man, and we're gonna draw him out, and it's gonna be beautiful. So, how do you project management? How do you keep track of like all of the, I don't know, Spike, like all the books you're working on / your own books, Taneka, all the projects you're working on, Gale, all the book, like how do you keep track of everything that you're working on? Do you use software? Do you take a lot of notes on paper? Like how help?
Okay, Iron Circus is run out of a Slack channel, like frankly a lot of publishers are. With everyone who is involved in Iron Circus, from me, founder, owner, editor, all the way down to the proofreader, has access to the Slack channel. Branching out from the Slack channel are all the other things that we use. For example, we use a combination of Google Drive and Dropbox to sort of manage our files. We have someone who's in charge of making sure that all the files occur in all the instances that we need them, which is to say like high res of the cover, web res of the cover, ebook we can mail out, print ready files. And so that's like, those are the ways books exist. And we have someone in charge of doing that. And it's on Google Drive in general, Dropbox when it has to be. I have something called a DAC board, D-A-K board, as in chessboard, DAC board. And it is essentially a thing that could aggregate everybody's personal Google Calendar into one calendar. So my print tech has all these drop dead dates that she puts on her Google Calendar, and my publicity guy has all these drop dead dates he puts on his Google Calendar. And
Can you explain what a drop dead date is? I'm sorry.
Oh, a drop dead date is we need this by today at the absolute latest, or it's not happening. So if a book needs to come out on X date, the drop dead date is the absolute latest. Those files can be turned into the print deck and still print tech, excuse me, and still hit their warehouse state. If someone blows their drop dead date, we need to completely retool when the book is coming out, because it is simply not possible for it to hit its future deadline. We also have in the Slack channel basically a link to a massive Google Drive repository of how things are run. We even have a flow chart that we've put together for folks who are being onboarded or they're new or they float in and out and need a refresher, where it's all the way from person is signed all the way down to book comes out. So person is signed, they work on the book, they have an editor. Here is your editor. Editor, this is what you're in charge of doing. This is how you contact the print tech. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. Here is the file that you give them to show them what size they're going to need to work at. And then it goes all the way down to, okay, they have turned in the files. The print tech looks them over and says they look okay. And then they finish turning in all the files after the print tech gives the okay on what they're doing. And it goes out to the proofreader before it starts being assembled into a print ready file, and the editor goes over it and blah, blah, blah. And of course, before now, the editor has been doing all their editor stuff. And then, we figure out because of past disasters, we no longer promote, advertise, or put in our distributor catalog anything that we don't have the finished files for, because I no longer trust people. I'll have it ready by January. No, you won't. You're a liar. You're a liar. And so
strong nod of approval from Gale.
Yeah. And so at that point, becomes this promo cycle, because there's a lot involved in promoting comics, especially these days, which is, you need to do the galley boxes, you need to do the review blogs. There are review blogs out there. It's like, if I told you their names, you'd be like, huh, who, what? But they hold immense power among librarians or the people who buy for Barnes and Noble. It's this whole little microcosm you need to be aware of, and they need to get review copies. It needs to go up on NetGalley and Edelweiss, which is where you put PDFs for people to look at. Essentially, that's what NetGalley and Edelweiss are. And then they need to go in galley boxes, which is these specialized boxes that go out to independent bookstores so they can preview the book and see if it's right for their store. And there are things like long lead arcs and short lead arcs, and those all have to come out. So that's a 10-month cycle between we have the finished art and the book comes out, and we need to get it to the printer, we need to get it on a freighter, and we need to ship it across the Pacific Ocean to Long Beach to get there. And that's all in the flow chart. And that is kind of how Iron Circus functions. We have monthly meetings with the whole company. We have weekly meetings with the editors, and that's all done on Skype because we're old. And
that sounds Slack flowcharts and tons of communication is how you keep
tons of
communication
running. Everybody has everybody else's phone number, everybody has everybody else's data. So if it's 8 p.m. and one page is missing, we can contact the editor in charge and go where's page 15? Oh my god,
we're getting some Iron Circus is run on Slack channel. Just blew my mind in the chat, which is
honestly, a lot of publishers are the people I work with. They live in California, they live in Portland, they live all over the place. So
I do want to leave some time for questions. So Taneka, let's go to you. No, please. It was fascinating. Please.
No worries. I will keep it very short. It's pretty simple. Google Docs.
What?
I am cheap and I like free software, and Google Docs is my friend. I use G Drive for everything, be it putting together the spreadsheet for a project, even for the payouts for the Kickstarter, or be it the information that I need to share with one another just quickly in a document. There you have it. It's pretty quick and easy. Oh, and I have a life-size, huge calendar that sits on a wall on my closet, and I write things on it I have to do, or I have to be, or this time for a panel, 10:30, like Zach said. So I woke up really early, and it's a Saturday. Anyway, but I did it because it was on the calendar. So that's how I keep track.
Okay, so as long as people aren't lying to you about the start times, you're good to go. Zach. Sorry, Gale, what about you? What do you use to project manage?
Yeah, similar. My brain, I know how it works, and that's the important thing. And that is no memory all over place. So I set a lot of reminders, use GCal. I have a big Google spreadsheet for my book stuff, which basically says, the book parts, the pencils, the inks, all of that are due on these days. Next to that, I put a formula in a cell saying, that's X days from now. Please keep track. And then just like each cell is a part of a page. Like here's page 1, thumbnails, pencils, inks, and I color it in. So I feel like I accomplished something. But I also have stamps for Hobonichi Planner because that's satisfying. So basically, I write things down a lot of different places and find ways to satisfy my little gremlin brain.
Yeah, actually, I have a thing called Habitica that anyone here who has a trouble getting organized should look into. If you've ever seen the Metalocalypse episode with the banana stickers, that's basically what Habitica is, where you have a little cute, pixely warrior, and it's like, you did the laundry, you get 5 XP, and like that little part of your brain goes, I get 5 XP.
It's important.
Exactly.
Like books are very long. Any way you can please yourself.
Exactly. You need little victories. Absolutely.
Yes. Marathon. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to open it up to questions. We got about 5 minutes for questions and then 5 minutes for outro. So disembodied voice of mice, if we have any questions, please let us know.
We sure do. We have loads of questions. It's blowing up out here.
Oh,
first question, and I'm going by votes. So get in there and vote stuff up if this is what you want, people. What are some different strategies for self-publishing versus how to get work with a publishing company? And that's from Kieran.
Self-publishing is definitely best for self-starters and people who, in my personal opinion, see a niche that is not being catered to. I think people who are very outgoing, people who are sort of naturally self-promoting, people who are willing to go to conventions and hand out, postcards with their URL on it and maintain a blog or a website and interact with their community are the ones who are best suited for being an independent creator, as opposed to someone who, on the other end of the bell curve, just wants to be alone in a room, draw a comic page and slip it under the door and keep slipping comic pages under the door until they have a graphic novel, and then wait 6 months and a check comes back out from under the door. And that's the career they want. And I work with both types of people.
nice.
Yeah, like I said, I think it does depend a lot on what your goals are. And we talked about this a little bit in the beginning, but just taking time to write down, like, here is what a successful life in comics would look like to me. Like, is that money? Is that validation from this kind of person? Is it working with a publisher? That's going to determine a lot of what you want. For me, it was, I want to make stories for kids specifically. Here are the people who do that. So I made a portfolio that was very aggressively tailored towards editors who might be interested in that.
Yeah. Don't make people do work, when they go to your website. If I'm looking for a children's illustrator and I go to a website and it's full of like, a crocodile pushing a little girl on a tire swing, it's like, oh, okay. All right. So
you want to do horror.
Now I can picture what this person's work for the book I'm looking for an illustrator would be like. But if I go to your website and it's all like space battles, not so much maybe.
Taneka, how about you?
So that we can move on to a new question, because those were perfect answers.
Nice.
All right, next question from Anonymous. On the topic of agents, how do you find an agent?
Agent queries are basically a thing. There are 2 ways I've heard this happening. 1, you are approached, and 2, you actually seek out a specific agent. Maybe you've heard good things about, maybe they got your friend signed, all kinds of reasons why you might query an agent. And an agent query is a thing that, there's a specific format. There's something that this agent will likely want to see and will ask to see from you. And that is going to vary from person to person to person. So, and of course, if you're querying an agent, make sure they are the correct agent for you. They aren't interchangeable. There are people who, they specialize again in children's illustration. And there are people who specialize in all kinds of different stuff. So make sure you're querying the right agent. Don't waste their time. And if an agent approaches you, that's not necessarily bad at all, that an agent approaches you, because maybe they saw your work and you're like, oh, I can definitely get this person work, which is like, hopefully that'd be great. But again, not to repeat myself, but it takes nothing to set yourself up as an agent. And you should be not on guard, not wary, but you should be aware of that and maybe ask those questions I talked about before. It's like, oh, who have you gotten signed and where, and who do you represent? because a good agent, an agent who is like in it to win it and not in it to rip you off and run away laughing, will be happy to let you know, oh, I got so-and-so signed to Random House. Aren't I special? So.
Taneka, do you have 2 different agents?
I do not actually. All of my animation work actually goes through my literary agent right now. She is a blessed soul who double duties as far as checking over contracts. I do like to say that other ways of getting an agent are also checking when their query season is open. Usually they're they're prolific about this. They usually have posts about it on their blogs, their websites, or their Twitter accounts, because agents do have blogs on WordPress still. So that is a thing. So just go ahead and check that out. I've also gone ahead and written letters of introduction for friends who were looking for agents as well. So if you have that chance or that opportunity and you feel like this person, even just having a meeting with someone, would be able to help them, try to help facilitate that. It can go really far for them.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to shout out Danny Chuatico on Twitter. That's DANICHUATICO. They teamed up with Jess and Sin to make a really good comprehensive guide to finding an agent for comic artists that might be worth looking into. I think it's Pay What You Want on Gumroad or Itch.io, one of those.
That's cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't know about that. All right. Can we do one more quick question?
Absolutely. So this next one's from Brandon. I like the idea that making this career is a series of shifts. In that context, how does one learn to recognize those shifts and how to best take advantage of them? I feel like I've been spinning my wheels in the dirt, even though I'm way ahead of where I used to be.
That's such a good
Honestly,
question.
it's like, here's the thing. I very naturally kind of fell into the role I am because it sort of suited me. And all my career has been, honestly, is me doing the thing I want to do harder and harder and harder and being unable to be stopped. And I think it's important to sort of understand what you want from yourself. And I totally get the spinning wheels feeling that followed me for years. But it was kind of like, I don't know, like losing or gaining weight, where if you gain 5 pounds in a month, chances are you don't see it. If you lose 5 pounds in a month, chances are you don't see it. But if that happens for 24 months, you can look back and to where you were 2 years ago and be all like, oh gosh, I'm bigger, or oh gosh, I'm smaller. I didn't even notice it happening. And I think that's kind of where your career is going to be. I think it's important to look back, like you say you do, and acknowledge you have come farther than you were. Maybe not as far as you'd like. Like, I'm not as far as I'd like. I think there are very few people who can say, oh, I'm super comfortable right here and I want nothing more from life. I think that's a thing that is vanishingly rare. It's out there, but rare. And just keep going in the direction that is working. I have stopped doing things that were not getting me what I wanted in favor of doing things that were getting me where I wanted to go. The people who follow me for years are still sad that I dropped my webcomic to focus on Iron Circus, but it was a thing that made financial and professional sense. And if what you're doing is what you want to be doing, and it makes financial and professional sense, and you can look back 2 years in the past and be like, oh, I have moved, I have changed, things are different now. I think persistence is super important, just staying at it.
That's awesome. We're almost out of time. Gale, Taneka, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. Yeah. I guess just take the time every year or two to check in with yourself. If you feel like you're spinning your wheels, maybe ask, why is that? Is it because I expected to be getting further, or because I'm comparing myself to some other point that is unrealistic? If you can look at your goals and see whether or not they've shifted, that can be really helpful. But in the end, you can only really compare yourself to your past self. Like, don't look too much at other people, and take the time to think about where you can go from here, for sure.
Yeah. Remember, social media is terrible for that. Don't compare your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. That's an awesome way to be super sad all the time.
Like we said at the beginning, suffering.
Really, just take care of yourself. It's all about those self-care Sundays. Make it through the week. Remember what your goals are, and remember that once you achieve them, you have to make another goal. So just keep moving forward and stop looking back so much.
Hell yeah.
That's good.
All right. So unfortunately, we're out of time. So if we could do like a quick, please plug yourself and where people can find you, and then I'll let Zachary come back and give a little outro. Even though I messed up our calendar. Just kidding.
Thank you so much, everyone. You can find my personal Twitter at iron_spike. You can find me on Kickstarter as Iron Spike, all one word. Follow me on Kickstarter and you'll be able to see whenever I launch a project. You can find the official Iron Circus Comics Twitter at Iron Circus Comics, with comics spelled COMIX. Follow that if you're tired of my bullshit and only want Iron Circus Comics news. You can also find Iron Circus on Instagram at Iron Circus, one word, and just search Iron Circus Comics on Facebook. We have pages there that update daily.
Nice.
Yeah, you can find me online by searching Gale Galligan. That's Gale Galligan. My handles on Twitter and Instagram are RoboChai for some reason, ROBOCHAI. I talk too much about Garfield, Hades, and anime. You can find the Babysitters Club Logan Likes Marianne at your favorite bookstore. Good to see you. Thanks for coming.
You can find me at Taneka Stotts on Twitter, Instagram, neither of which I'm updating. My website, tanekastotts.com, which I never update. But sometimes, occasionally, I talk about which K-drama I'm watching. So there you have it.
We did it.
And you can find me at Jazzlyn Stone on Twitter and Instagram, jazzlynstone.com. Thank you so much. This was hilarious. I learned a lot. I took so many notes. I don't know where I've fallen on if I'm going to start paying my quarterly taxes or not. I'm still debating that. But thank you so much, everyone. And thanks for coming.
Thank you.
This was
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, so much. Oh my goodness! Thank you to Jazzlyn for moderating. Thank you, Gale. Thank you, Spike. Thank you, Taneka. Holy moly! Thank you so much. Mice says, "Pay your taxes, please."
Live.
Not your quarterly ones.
Okay, now it's time to announce the two winners of the Graphic Artists Guild Handbook Pricing Ethical Guidelines, Volume 14. Oh, sorry, Version 14. The two winners are Kiernan Tier Thomas and Laura Wagner. Congratulations, and someone from Mice will be in touch with you very soon via email. Thanks everyone for coming. To order our panelist books from Paper Asylum, which is a local independent comic shop, please find links on our website by clicking the button on your screen below. This session is part of the Month of Mice, #Month of Mice, a month of free comics programs including panel discussions and workshops. If you want to chill out with us tonight, join us for the drink and draw at 7 p.m. We got a bunch of Boston local artists who are going to be drinking and drawing with us. If you're interested in this topic of this panel, you may also want to check out Creating Graphic Novels for Middle Grade Readers next Saturday at 2 p.m. For a full list of sessions, visit Mice Expo, that's MICEXPO.org. And if you didn't win a book today, you still have another chance. Check out our fundraising raffle where you can win cool prizes like the Guild Handbook and a lifetime membership to Artwork Archive. This is Zach from Mice signing off. Thank you so much for coming.